So in this scene, gosh, it's hard. Ivan and Alyosha, Ivan has just left the woman he's loved and he's decided that he's leaving and things are really bad in their family. He's one of the sons of the father, Karamazov, and things are going quite badly at home. The older brother has almost killed the father like the day before yesterday, and Ivan is living with the father and has decided to get out of town. And he and Alyosha, the youngest brother, have barely had any time to talk. They've been separated for many years. It's very complicated. But they're together here for a moment before Ivan leaves, and things are pretty heavy in their house. He's left the woman that he loves, but she's engaged to the older brother. It's very complicated, but I think that's enough. They're out of restaurant. I just took your line.
We're going to try this without mics. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can everyone hear all right?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Adrian?
I can hear you,
Okay.
Phil. Huh?
So, do you guys want to say who you are?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Louise is
I'm going to be leading stage direction.
in the play. She played Katerina, but she is going to read stage directions tonight for us.
And I'll read Yvonne.
And that he played that in the play.
I'll read Alyosha.
I will read The Inquisitor.
All right, ready?
Yes.
The brothers get acquainted. A restaurant.
I'll order some fish soup for you or something. You don't live on tea alone, do you?
I'll have fish soup and then tea. I'm very hungry.
And cherry preserve? They have it here. You remember how much you loved cherry preserve at Polinov's when we were little?
You remember that? I'll have preserve too. I still love it.
Same for me. I love everything. I remember everything, Alyosha. I remember you till you were 11. I was nearly 15 then. Then I went off to university, barely saw you at all. Spent all those years in Moscow while you were here at the monastery. And now it's the 4th month since I've been at our father's and we've hardly spoken. I want to get acquainted with you once and for all, and with that, to say goodbye. I saw how you kept looking at me all these months. You seemed to love me for some reason, Alyosha.
I do love you, Ivan. But I've learned something about you today.
What?
You won't be angry
Well,
that you are still green.
you know, I've been thinking about that myself, thinking about my greenness. No matter how desperately bitter I am in life, still I have a naive desire to live. The sticky little leaves that come out in spring are dear to me. The blue sky is dear to me. Some people are dear to me. Here's our fish soup. It's good. They make it well. The sticky spring leaves, the blue sky, such things you love not with your mind, not with your logic, but with your insides, your guts. You understand any of this blather, Alyosha?
Yes, Ivan. I think that everyone should love life before everything else in the world.
Love life more than its meaning.
Love it before logic, and only then will you understand its meaning. That is how I imagine it. Have you seen Dmitri today?
No, I haven't.
I really must find it. How will it end between brother and father?
What have I got to do with it? I'm not my brother's keeper. Don't drag that out again.
Are you really leaving this evening, brother?
You and I have the whole day before us. We didn't come here to talk about Katerina or Dmitri. We green youths need one thing. We need first of all to resolve the everlasting questions. Now tell me where to begin. With the existence of God?
You did proclaim yesterday at Father's that there is no God.
I said that on purpose to tease you, and I saw how your eyes burned. Well, imagine that perhaps I too believe in God. That comes as a surprise to you.
Yes. Of course, unless you're joking again.
I do believe in God. Only, I don't accept this world that He's created.
Explain.
I will, because I don't want to give you up to your Zosimo without a fight. You see, Alyosha, I am a collector of certain little facts. I copy them down from newspapers and stories and save them. They help me build my case. A Bulgarian I met recently in Moscow told me how the Turks have been committing atrocities everywhere, fearing a general uprising of the Slavs. They burn, kill, rape women and children. They nail prisoners by their ears to fences, and they leave them like that until morning. And in the morning, they hang them. People talk about the animal cruelty of man, but that is terribly unjust and offensive to animals. No animal could ever be so cruel as a man, so artfully, so artistically cruel. A tiger simply gnaws and tears. That's all he can do. It would never occur to him to nail people by their ears overnight.
What are you driving at?
I have native specimens as well. I've collected a great deal about Russian children, Alyosha. There was a little girl about 5 years old. She was hated by her father and mother. They beat her, they flogged her, kicked her until her whole body was nothing but bruises. And one night, in the freezing cold, they locked her all night in the outhouse because she had had an accident in her bed in the middle of the night. They smeared her face with her excrement and made her eat the excrement, and it was her mother. Her mother who made her. Can you imagine that tiny little girl who cannot even comprehend what is being done to her in that horrible place, in the dark and the cold, beating herself on her little chest with her tiny fists and weeping for dear God to protect her? Can you understand such nonsense, my friend and brother? Why is God not protecting her? What great truth would be worth the tears of that little unknowing child? I'm tormenting you, Alyosha. You don't look yourself. I'll stop if you wish.
Never mind, I want to hear it.
One more picture, because it's just so typical, and I just read it. It was in the darkest days of serfdom. At the beginning of the century, there was a general, very wealthy. He had hundreds of dogs in his kennels and many serfs and horses. And one day, a little house serf, only 8 years old, threw a stone while he was playing, and he hurt the paw of the general's favorite hound. "Why is my favorite dog limping?" asked the general. It was reported to him that the boy had thrown the stone, and so they took him. They took him from his mother, and at dawn, the general rode out in full dress for the hunt, mounted on his horse, surrounded by his dogs and his huntsmen on horseback. The house serfs are gathered there for their edification, the guilty boy's mother in front of them all. And the boy is let out of the lockup. It's a gloomy, cold, misty autumn day. Great day for hunting. The general orders them to undress the boy. The child is stripped naked. He shivers. He's crazy with fear. He doesn't dare make a peep. "Run," the general commands. The boy runs. "Sick him," screams the general, and looses a whole pack of wolfhounds on the boy. He hunted him down before his mother's very eyes, and those dogs tore that child to pieces. Well, what to do with him? The general. Shoot him for moral satisfaction?
Shoot him.
A fine monk you are.
What I said is absurd, but
You know, that's just it. That but.
why are you testing me?
My dear little brother, it's not that I want to corrupt you. Perhaps I want to be healed by you. Look, I want the lion to lay down with the lamb and all that. For it all to make sense in the end. I want us all to be able to cry out, "Lord, you are just. I finally understand why the world is set up the way it is. I want to forgive. I don't want more suffering. But I do not want the mother to embrace the tormentor who let his dogs tear her son to pieces. And if that is so, how does it ever resolve? Where's the harmony? Is there any peace to be had? Is there in the whole world a being who could and would have the right to forgive that?"
But Ivan, there is such a being. He himself gave his innocent blood for all and for everything. You've forgotten about
I've
him.
been wondering why you hadn't brought him up, because in discussions your people usually trot him out first thing. Yes, Jesus could forgive, but what about the rest of us? If not even you, then who? The vast majority of humanity is thus excluded from redemption, and we're doomed to suffer. You know, Alyosha, don't laugh. I composed a poem once, about a year ago. If you can waste a few more minutes on me, I'll tell it to you.
I'm listening carefully.
My poem is called The Grand Inquisitor. It's an absurd thing, but I want you to hear it. My action is set in Spain, in Seville, in the most horrible time of the Inquisition, when fires blaze every day to the glory of God. Jesus appeared. Of course, this was not the coming in which he will appear at the end of time in all his heavenly glory. No, he decided to visit his children, if only for a moment, and precisely where the fires of the heretics had begun to cackle. He appeared quietly, inconspicuously.
As Yvonne continues the story, a soundscape rises up, and we see the image of a glowing man passing behind the set.
As he walks through the town, people are drawn to him, and they start to follow him. They seem to understand who he is. He comes upon a blind man, and Jesus touches him, and he can see. He stops at the porch of a cathedral where a child's open white coffin is being brought in. He whispers to the dead child, and the girl rises in her coffin, smiling. The Cardinal Grand Inquisitor, who has been watching from a distance, orders his guards to take Jesus. The crowd immediately falls deathly silence and parts as the guards take Jesus and lead him to a small, gloomy, vaulted prison.
We see Jesus in the cell.
The day is over. The Seville night comes, dark, hot, breathless. The air is fragrant with laurel and lemon.
Sound of an iron door to the prison opening. The Inquisitor enters, carrying a lamp. The door is locked behind him. He stands in the entrance for a long time, gazing into the prisoner's face.
Is it you? You? Well, after all, what could you say? You have no right to add anything to what you already said once. Why? Why have you come to interfere with us?
I don't understand what this poem is, Yvonne. Is it fantasy, or has the old man just made a mistake and it's not really Jesus?
Assume it's the latter, if you like, if you're so spoiled by modern realism and can't stand anything fantastic. Of course, the man is 90 years old and may have lost his mind years ago over his idea.
Yes, you can't say anything, can you? Anything you say now will encroach upon the freedom of men's faith, for it will come as a miracle. And the freedom of their faith was the dearest of all things to you. When the devil came to you in the wilderness and tempted you, those 3 temptations, you rejected them. And in this, you acted heroically, as a god should. But how much happier for mankind if you had yielded. If you had turned the stones into loaves of bread like the devil encouraged you, how mankind would have run after you like sheep, grateful and obedient. If you had listened to the tempter and thrown yourself off the tower so your Father in heaven could save you, you would have proved to all that you were indeed the Son of God. If you had accepted the scepter of the great and terrible Spirit to rule over people like Caesar, mankind would have served you till the end of time. But you did not want the servile rapture of a slave groveling before a higher power that would have left him permanently terrified. But you thirsted for a faith that is free. A faith not bought with the bread or miracles or the use of force. Henceforth, man had to decide for himself what is good and what is evil, having only your image before him as a guide.
God, oh, it's praising Jesus, not reviling him.
Well, I'm with the Inquisitor, Alyosha. If Jesus had yielded to those temptations, the broadness of human nature would have been kept in check. Perhaps our little serf would not have been torn apart by dogs, and our dear little 5-year-old girl would not be crying in the dark, covered in her own shit.
You gave mankind too much credit. They are much weaker than you thought. So the holy few will gain their reward in heaven. But what about the many here on earth who are weak? You've abandoned them. Well, the weak, too, are dear to us. Know that I, too, was preparing to enter the number of chosen ones, but I awoke and did not want to serve madness. So I joined the host of those who corrected your deed. We give them bread. We give them miracles. We tell them what to do and how to think and forgive them for their sins. And mankind rejoiced that they were once more led like sheep, and that at last such a terrible gift of freedom, which had brought them so much suffering, had been lifted from their hearts.
This is absurd. You're giving this argument to a cardinal during the Grand Inquisition. His is not a moral point of view.
I told you my poem was absurd. Why couldn't he too be motivated by higher feelings? He lays it to his and his colleagues' credit that they have finally overcome man's freedom and have done so in order to make people happy.
Tomorrow, I shall condemn you, and burn you at the stake as the most evil of heretics. And the very people who today kissed your feet, tomorrow, at a nod from me, will rush to heap the coals up around your stake. Do you know that? For if anyone ever deserved our fire, it is you.
There's a long, extended moment as they look at each other. Suddenly, Jesus approaches the old man and gently kisses him on his lips. The old man shudders. He walks away to the door, opens it.
Go and do not come again. Do not come at all. Never. Never.
The prisoner goes away.
And the old man?
The kiss burns in his heart, but the old man holds to his idea.
And you with him.
But it is a fiction, Alyosha.
The sticky little leaves. And the blue sky, and the woman you love. How will you live? What will you love them with? With such a hell in your heart and in your head, you won't endure it.
There is a force that will endure everything.
What force?
The Karamazov baseness.
To drown in depravity? To stifle your soul with corruption? Is that it?
Will you judge me for that?
Alyosha stands up,
Will you?
goes to him in silence, and gently kisses him on the lips.
Literary theft. Alyosha, it's time we go. It's time we both did.
They go out of the restaurant.
So, Alyosha, if indeed I hold out for the sticky little leaves, I shall love them only remembering you. It's enough for me that you are here somewhere, and I shall not stop wanting to live. If you wish, you can take that as a declaration of love. And now, holy monk, you go right, I'll go left.